senior officers here, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. I'm really delighted to be with you this morning, and on behalf of the officers, airmen, and airwomen, I welcome all of you to Headquarters Nigerian Air Force for this media parley. As was introduced by the Director of Public Relations and Information, the media is a very important and strategic partner to the Nigerian Air Force in particular because of the importance of the media in determining the success or otherwise of our operations. This is applicable to other services, but I will just talk about the Nigerian Air Force this morning. And that is why it's very important for us to continuously engage the media and make sure that we're all in tune so that this strategic effect that the media has on our operations can be sustained. So I want to quickly also thank all of you because so far the media has been a very good, a very strategic partner. You have done very well in this role, the strategic role of ensuring the success of our operations. I think we have not had it otherwise because it can go either way, but we have had it, the positive side. So we have every reason to thank you very much, and we are very appreciative of that. And we sincerely look forward to you continuously supporting us in that direction. I'm looking forward to having very fruitful discussions with you this morning, and hopefully we'll be much better informed on the goings-on and activities of Nigerian Air Force for all Nigerians to know, and hopefully that will also impact positively on the success of our operations going forward. So once again, I thank you very much for coming, and I look forward to very fruitful discussions with you this morning. Thank you. For that question, I think the question is twofold. Nigerian Air Force at 60, and then coming into office as the 22nd Chief of the Air Staff just about 11 months ago, what challenges I've seen and how I'll be able to. So I'll start with the first question. Nigerian Air Force will be 60 in a couple of days. The idea to establish the Nigerian Air Force started in the late 1950s and early 1960s. So in 1959, there was an insurrection in the then Tanganyika, now called Tanzania, and the then President, Julius Nyerere, requested the Nigerian government to assist in quelling that riot. And so Nigeria had to send troops to Tanganyika, in those days now called Tanzania. Similarly, in 1960, there was a United Nations mission in the Congo, and Nigeria was to contribute troops to that operation also, but we did not have any access to transport our troops to those theaters of operation. And so those movements were completely dependent on foreign air forces, we realized, and that was not good. So that was when the idea to establish the Nigerian Air Force started getting mooted. In 1962, started contacting foreign partners, and trainings were conducted. Some personnel went to Ethiopia, some went to Canada, and some other countries. And the Nigerian Air Force was officially established by an Act of Parliament in April 1962. And thereafter, there was a German technical assistant group that was brought in to nurture and bring up the Nigerian Air Force. However, with the onset of the Civil War in 1967, that assistance, the Germans left, and Nigerian Air Force at a very young age had to fend for itself. I'm glad to say that Nigerian Air Force played its role very well during the Civil War and survived. And then after the Civil War, we had, in the 70s and the 80s, what we call the golden era of the Nigerian Air Force, where we had very significant improvement in the aircraft and other equipment holding. So maybe you will remember airplanes like the Alpha Jets, like the C-130 Hercules, like the Jaguars, the MiG-21s. You know, those were very nice times, and we call them the golden days. So all those airplanes came that time, and then there was a law. But after that was during the military regime. So at the onset of democracy again, in 1999, our fortunes, started getting revived to what we have in the present, which is a very formidable Air Force. So from a very basic beginning, where we were just a tactical Air Force, just designed to, support the operations of surface forces, to what we have today is a strategic Air Force, or an Air Force that is capable of carrying out strategic operations whenever required. So there has been a lot of transformation, not least in the past decade, maybe the past 5 years also. We have had so many transformations, so to speak. We have had a lot of different platforms coming into the system. So like the Super Tucanos, like the Mi-35s, the Bell 412s, they all came into the system within this. So this is another golden era, so to speak, again for the Nigerian Air Force. And as of today, well, in the past 8 months, we have also had about 8 brand new airplanes, 3 different types, but 8 in total, coming into the inventory of the Nigerian Air Force. In the next 1 year, 1.5 years or so, we also have about another 48 airplanes coming into the inventory. So these are also very exciting times, very important times for the Nigerian Air Force in terms of its growth, development, and transformation. So basically, from a very tactical Air Force, today we're a very formidable Air Force, arguably one of the best on the African continent, one of the biggest also. So we have come a very long way. We have every reason to celebrate. We have every reason to be happy at 60. When you look at how we have transformed from being very basic to what we have now, which is really a very formidable force, able to carry out the complete gamut of air operations. So hitherto some capabilities that we did not have, like intelligence, surveillance, reconnaissance. We have had that recently. We have a lot of platforms that are capable of doing that. Also in the area of unmanned aerial vehicles, that is a recent capability we have also acquired, and it's making a lot of difference in the conduct of our operations. So the Air Force is now very balanced, very formidable, and very capable. Also now strategic in outlook. So we are very happy. We have every reason to be happy at 60, and we look forward to more golden years ahead. Now, on your second question, I came in when the Air Force is almost 60, so I have to tell you the history about the earlier 60 years. Well, when I assumed the mantle of leadership as the 22nd Chief of the Air Staff about 10, 11 months ago, the first thing we tried to do was to carry out a very detailed and thorough environmental scan. That scan was to look at the Air Force as a whole, all aspects of Air Force, operations, training, logistics, and everything, to see where we were, what we had, and what capabilities we need to acquire, what equipment we need to have, what kind of skills in terms of manpower we needed to have to be able to get to where we wanted to be as an Air Force, where we envisaged we need to be as an Air Force. So as a result of this environmental scan, I came up with what I call my command philosophy, which is to transform the Nigerian Air Force into an agile and resilient force that effectively meets the air power demands of national security in all operational environments. Now, this scan was to identify all the gaps and the issues, like I said, in the various aspects of the Air Force, to give us a very good idea of what we needed to do to take the Air Force to the next higher level. So in order to achieve this command philosophy, we had some focus areas that we also needed to look at, and those areas, I formulated them into what I call the key enablers to achieving my command philosophy for the Nigerian Air Force. Essentially, the areas have focus on the first key enabler, which has to do with optimization of our force structure and establishment for enhanced operational effectiveness. Then we had another key enabler that focuses on training and manpower development. Also a focus on research and development, leveraging cutting-edge technology and strategic partnerships. And then the last but not the least of the key enablers had to do with maintaining a very highly motivated force by ensuring welfare and also infrastructural renewal. So these key enablers and command philosophy were to guide us as an Air Force. Most of our activities that that we really need to do to take the Air Force to the next higher level fall under these key enablers. So we can discuss the key enablers one after the other to see the gaps and then the interventions we have done in all these key enablers so far in the past 1 year, and how they have resolved a lot of the issues that we have had, and going forward also how they are going to impact on our activities to take us to the next higher level. But essentially, that is what we have done, and those are the areas we are looking at to take the Air Force to the next higher level, to address all the challenges that we'll be able to identify at the beginning.
Thank you, sir. My name is Isha.
For this question, so I will just look at the areas maybe one after the other. So recruitment and training, then acquisition of assets. So in the area of training, which again is in line with one of the key enablers of my command philosophy, what we did when we came in, we looked at the manpower that we had, and we realized that this manpower we had was not very effective as a result of this environmental scan. And this is manpower that is coming out of our training institutions. We have various training institutions. Virtually every trade specialty in the Air Force has. We have a training institution that trains our personnel, both officers and men, to feed into the field. Now, what we realized is that this training was not optimal, because when this manpower comes to the field, they're not readily employable. You have to do some kind of retraining, reorientation in the field for you to be able to use them, optimally. So we had to, and this was not acceptable because they are wasting a lot of time and resources. Also, we had to look at we had to look at the institutions. We had to look at the setup completely. And what we realized is that the syllabi in most of these training institutions were not really adequate. Some of these syllabi were designed 5, 10, 20 years ago, and they had not had adequate revisions to make them realistic for the kind of activities that we do currently. So we had to start overhauling the whole syllabi of all our training institutions in order for them to be able to produce the required quality of manpower. We also realized that a lot of the training institutions were deficient in terms of facilities and infrastructure. And again, it's one of the focus areas of my command philosophy to address the issue of infrastructure. So incidentally, this was a gap here in our training institutions, and so we are also focusing seriously on providing the right kind of infrastructure and facilities to ensure that the manpower that is coming out of this institution is optimal and ready for use directly into the field. Similarly, the instructors. There was also a decay in the quality of instructors. So now that's another focus area. We have designed a completely new set of criteria for selecting instructors that will teach in any Air Force institution, and with specific qualifications and skill sets. So all these are designed to make sure that anybody that passes through any Nigerian Air Force institution, by the time he comes out, he must meet and expectedly also surpassed the expected standard. So that is how we're addressing the issue of training. We also, in the past 1 year, we have graduated 237 officers, both regular combatant officers and as well as the directional service officers, and as well about 1,200 airmen, that is recruits, enlisted personnel in the past 1 year. So that also has boosted our manpower holding. We are just about to start, training another set of officers from the Directional Service Commission, as well as another set of enlisted personnel. So hopefully, before the completion of 1 year in office, we'll have boosted our manpower holding maybe by a couple of thousands, which is, a very significant boost within the period that we're looking at. Now, in terms of acquisitions, in the past 1 year, I earlier mentioned that, these are the repetition of the golden times, probably, better golden time. Maybe these are diamond times for the Nigerian Air Force, because there is no time in the history of Nigerian Air Force that we have had this kind of assets and capabilities, coming into the system. So in the past 1 year only, we have had, like I said, 8 platforms coming with different kinds of capabilities. So we had, I think it was October last year, we had 4 Diamond 62 airplanes. These are special mission airplanes that are equipped with cameras and optimized for intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance. So, these are needed for the kind of operations that we do today. We had 4 of them coming into the system at the same time, and they are all deployed in various theaters of operation that are making very good impact on the quality of or conduct of the operations. Then we had also the King Air 360. These are light transport and liaison airplanes. Of course, they also help in tactical airlift and logistics movement and other liaison flights. So we had 2 of that. Then we got the T-129 attack helicopters from the Turkish aerospace industries. It's a total of 6 that the federal government has procured for the Nigerian Air Force, but 2 have arrived in the country. The other 2 we're expecting June, July. So perhaps that will even increase the number within, the 1 year that we're talking about, if those 2 eventually come by June. So that is also an airplane that is optimized for ground attack. We have deployed the 2 of them in the Niger Delta, where they have made very significant impact in curtailing oil thefts and pipeline vandalization. So just in the past 1 year, those are the ones that have come into the inventory. But in terms of overall acquisition, it's far more than that, because when the airplane is not something you go and buy off the shelf. It's not just sitting there. But the federal government has already made payments, and concrete contracts have been signed. For example, for the acquisition of another type of attack helicopter, the AH-1 Zulu from the US. And 12 of them are coming into the inventory. They will start coming in this year. We also have firm contracts for the procurement of 12 light attack helicopters. Also, that's the Augusta Westland 109 Trekker. As a matter of fact, the first one of those is also in the country. It's been assembled. It's waiting for test flights. And that's why we don't say it's already in the inventory, but started arriving in the country. So that's 12 also. Then we have and those are firmed, arrangements. The money has been paid, contracts have been signed, so they are coming into the inventory. Then we have also the M346. For those of us that are familiar with the Alpha Jets, the Alpha Jets operated in Liberia, Sierra Leone. All our external operations, they have been here from the first golden era. So now the airplanes are old, they're getting tired, and then we can't get spares for them, we can't get armaments for them. So they need to retire. And that was why we had to look for a suitable replacement. And this is why this next airplane came. It's the M346. It's from Italy. And the federal government procured 24 of them for the Nigerian Air Force. It's also firmed up. and they are also supposed to start arriving in the country before the end of this year. It's a large number because it's used for boat training. It's a transition trainer for fighter pilots. Then it's also used for light attack. So it's two roles. We use it operationally also for training. So that's why we have two squadrons of it. So if you look at it with all these acquisitions and manpower and training, I think we have had a very very formidable, successful time in the past 1 year. Fight against insurgency, banditry is a completely different kind of warfare. It's the kind of warfare where your adversary, they are Nigerians, they are embedded within the population. It's not like the conventional warfare where you just load their airplanes with bombs and just go and drop it. Whoever is there is an adversary. Now, the adversary is embedded within the population. And the same media has reported several in the past where we have, had, drop bombs maybe mistakenly, and there were civilian casualties. So we are very, very careful not to do that. We don't want even one innocent Nigerian to be killed because we are fighting bandits and terrorists. So it makes the operation very complicated and very difficult, not like the normal conventional operations. So the operations we have now are largely intelligence driven. So we do a lot of intelligence, we do a lot of follow-up, and ideally, we should be doing only precision strikes in order to completely avoid collateral damage, but that is not possible. So, and that is why a lot of measures are put in place, targeting cycles, intelligence cycles, a lot of ISR, intelligence surveillance and reconnaissance, a lot of data collection and analysis before we hit a target, just to make sure that innocent people don't suffer. And that's why it's difficult. So you need to appreciate that. We can bomb the whole of Sambisa forest in 1 day and make sure that nobody lives there, but it's not possible because of the challenges I just mentioned. Likewise, all the other theaters of operation, there are just too many innocent people embedded, sometimes not out of their free will, but forced to stay with all this. So you understand the complexities, and that's why it's something that has to be deliberate and it takes time, but eventually we'll overcome those challenges.
That brings me to my question. Sorry, sir. That brings me to my question of Northeast. Your visibility in South, Niger Delta, Southeast, this year, I think late last year, this year, it's very commendable and impressive. And because it's not only the Navy fighting the oil theft alone, you are now in the business. Sorry, let me use that in the business of fighting the oil theft. So now, I want to ask you this question. I want you to assess your synergy with your sister services, then with the increasing threats of terrorism and insurgency in various regions. How do you envision the Nigerian Air Force leveraging its air power capabilities to support ground troops, to support ground operations and enhance joint force effectiveness in the ongoing anti-insurgency campaign? So I want you to assess the synergy.
I don't know if it's a concern or fear that there is no synergy, between the armed forces. I want to assuage that concern or fear that now there is a very good synergy between all the services. When I say very good, I mean very good synergy, and it's reflected in the successes that we have, in the various status of operations. There is the major roles, for example, for the Nigerian Air Force, or some of the major roles are designed to support surface forces. So if there is no synergy between Nigerian Air Force and surface forces, there can't be any significant impact in our operations. And you agree with me that we have had, very good impacts in recent times. So, for example, close air support, the tactical air lifts, airdrop operations, all those operations are conducted. Even ISR now, it has to be done in conjunction with with the movement and fire of surface forces. So it's something that you can't run away from. It's something that is integral, intrinsic to the nature of operations that we are doing, that you must synergize, you must cooperate for it to have any meaningful impact. If you don't do that, there is no way any single service can conduct any operation and have meaningful impact, especially the kinds of operations that we do now. So when we came on board, and incidentally, this is just a bonus that we have. Both myself, the Chief of Naval Staff, and the Chief of the Army Staff were all mates. So we have that understanding and rapport. As a matter of fact, the Chief of Naval Staff, we went to the same secondary school, so we're in the same class. So all along we have been together. So it's just a bonus that we have very good understanding on the personal level. So that also enhances our ability to synergize and collaborate and cooperate with each other. We did the same thing with the Chief of Defense Staff. We're all in NDA together. And one other bonus that we have, again, we're all in the same battalion. All the service chiefs and the CDS, the same battalion. So we know ourselves very well. It's not, supposed to be it's just a bonus that we have that understanding and close relationship, and then it helps us. But even looking at it, operationally, that is the only way to go. Any service, that wants to succeed operationally has to collaborate, has to synergize with other services. And I think you are seeing that, you have been seeing that for the past 1 year, that there has not been any lapses or gaps that have resulted in the conduct of operations due to lack of synergy or lack of collaboration between the services. So I think that's the way to go. That's what we are doing, and we hope that we'll just continue to strengthen and cement and refine, our means of collaboration and cooperation going forward.
Yes, and also the local sourcing of spare parts for this platform, so that we don't fall victim to any change in global politics. The other side of the other question is we talked about the synergy between the services. The Nigerian Army is operationalizing its air aviation wing, and they are very keen on it. How do you coexist with the Air Force, and in terms of joint operations, how do you work?
Array of assets that we're getting into the country. So again, I'll go back to one of the key enablers of my command philosophy, which is a focus on research and development, leveraging cutting-edge technology, strategic partnerships, and maybe lessons learned in the past. Because it's one of the areas that we have identified gaps, and it's one of the areas that we really need to put a lot of effort to address. The Air Force started addressing this, quite some time back, so we're just building on it. And because if you look at it, the Air Force is the most technical arm of service, and 80 to 90% of our procurements, whether it's in training, that's both soft and hard, whether it's in training, in airplanes, in spares, sometimes even the fuel we use, like the AFGAS, it's not refined there, we have to import it. So almost all our expenditure is forex based, very expensive. We all are aware of the issues with forex and the effect it has, on our expenditure. So it's not something that is sustainable. And this was realized long time, in the Air Force, even before the financial issues of recent times. And so the Air Force had to start looking inwards to see how we can start, domesticating some of these things. Because in the past, even to the smallest rivet that you use on an airplane, a rivet is just like a small pin that you take to attach two metals together, or the skin of the airplane. Even to that, we had to import it. So we had to look inwards because, first of all, it's not sustainable financially. Number two, if all the time you have to depend on foreign vendors for your defense needs, that's also very bad for national security outlook. So we had to start looking inwards, and we started developing very strong R&D institutions. we have a very good, very robust R&D setup right from the grassroots. We encourage a lot of R&D right from the unit levels, and then right up to the level of the headquarters. So at the headquarters, we have the Air Force Institute of Technology, which is in Kaduna. Started as technical training group, just to train technical manpower for maintenance of the airplanes. But now it's of university status and has programs up to PhD level in various areas in aviation, including space vehicle design and all that. So it does a lot of research for us. We also have, on the other hand, the Air Force. This is not academic in nature, but it's designed to solve problems in the field, what we experience in the field, and we need to research or reverse engineer or address a problem in the field. We give it to this other institute, and that's the Air Force Research and Development Center. It's currently located at Oshogbo. It used to be in Kaduna. So these two institutes, in addition to the grassroots-based research and development that we have done, have gone a very long way to assist us. There are so many technologies or products that have come out of this research efforts that have saved the Nigerian Air Force and the Nigerian government a lot of money. There are so many products. There are more than 30 products that have come out of this research arrangements and that we're using in the field to solve field practical problems. As a matter of fact, we just conducted the intercommand, so we do competitions we have an R&D policy. It's a very robust arrangement, We have an R&D policy that addresses issues of R&D right from the grassroots up to the highest level. So we just conducted the intercommand R&D competition, I think about 2 days ago, and we're going to award the winners, we give them some award during the NAV Day celebrations. So all these are, and then you needed to be there to see the kind of products and innovative ideas that were brought, were researched and produced by various personnel and units in the Nigerian Air Force. It's really wonderful. So we have that arrangement, and it's really working very well for us. So we're making a lot of investment and addition to make sure that going forward, more products are being produced. In that line also, we have what we call Memorandum of Understanding with about 40 tertiary institutions within the country, as well as tertiary research institutes. All this is just to leverage their capabilities in terms of manpower and equipment that will support our own R&D efforts. So it's a very robust arrangement, has been very successful, has saved us a lot of money, and I think the only way to go is just to continue to support it, encourage it, and until at a point when we can be self-sufficient, we can produce all what we need, or at least to a large extent, since no nation is an island, but at least we will be largely independent in terms of production of defense needs. So I think we're on the right track and the right direction. We just need to continue to build on that.
Also, what happened to the president, and Iran is one of those countries touted to have strategic and capabilities and capabilities, but we saw how they struggled in terms of identifying the implication of things. And then at a point, there's politics involved, but they were being taunted as they were not even able to have night vision equipment to be able to see through how prepared is the Nigerian Air Force in terms of responding to emergencies. That aircraft, I don't think it was an military aircraft, but accidents do happen all the time. To do with the R&D, I think one of your R&Ds, 5 years ago, I think, the NAP showcased the production of the runway lights. I would like to know how far that project has gone, because it assists aviation in terms of the movements at night. I also want to ask about the personnel condition of service. How is it, and what is your focus in ensuring that the condition of service is good to attract and retain personnel? Thank you.
First of all, the way we look at it is to try to prevent accidents and incidents. First of all, because that's the best strategy, you know. So, and in that regard, we have put, we also have had our own share. I think just this year we lost 2 airplanes. We lost 1 airplane in Port Harcourt. We lost another one in Kaduna. Luckily for us, all the crew escaped, except for one of our firefighters who was trying to, put out the fire on one of the airplanes, and then he was affected by some shrapnel, and then he died. But luckily for us, so we have had our own fair share. Last year we also lost 1 airplane. So our strategy, as far as incidents and accidents is concerned, is to first of all do everything possible to make sure that they don't happen. Then of course we have mitigating actions if they do happen. So I'll start with trying to make sure our strategy and trying to make sure that these accidents don't even happen in the first place, and that is what strategy we're putting in place. So like they say, an accident, and that is a universally accepted theory. They call it the accident causation theory. It says that an accident is a chain of events. It's never a single thing that happens, that an accident just happens. No, it's usually a chain of events, one thing leading to the other, until eventually it results into an incident or an accident. Now, if somewhere along that chain there is a system or a facility or an intervention put in place, or an individual does something along the chain at any of the points of the chain, then the chain is broken. Then that accident or incident does not happen. Now, for us to be able to, we're now using that theory, using it and trying to make sure that, applying it to see that accidents or incidents don't even happen in the first place. For us to be able to even see that chain, we need to have exposure to be able to see it. We need to have training to be able to even see that, okay, this is a safety issue, and if we don't do anything about it, it's going to eventually result into an accident or an incident. So what we have done is to try to institutionalize a safety culture in the Nigerian Air Force, right from the grassroots up to the highest level. At every point of the organization, we want to have a safety culture. We want to make sure that the safety culture is well ingrained. Now, if we have a safety culture, it means everybody is thinking safety. Everybody is looking out for safety issues. Everybody is looking out in all our, and this covers all aspects of safety: domestic, aviation safety, and operational safety, and other aspects of safety. So once we are thinking safety, we are looking out for safety issues, we are conscious of it, we are aware, maybe by virtue of training or exposure, it means everybody in the Air Force is looking out for safety. There is no way a chain will start and eventually follow the chain and get to an incident or an accident if we're all aware and we're all looking out and we're all trying to break the chain at some point or the other. So what we have done is to try to make sure that every personnel in the Air Force, from the lowest to the highest, has some exposure to safety training. So for example, in all our training institutions, they don't have to be, we have a safety institute that is also at Ijeṣa that does professional safety training. But in addition to that, because not everybody in the Air Force can go into that place because of limited capacity and all that, it does various kinds of safety training. But for every other person, you must go through one Nigerian Air Force institution or the other along the line, in your career. Now, what we have done is every institution at every level. So, for example, even the recruit that is coming in during recruit training, we have a module that we expose him to that is, safety training. So he's already aware of safety issues even as he's entering the Air Force. Then the next training he goes at every level, every institution, there is a module, that has to do with safety. So doing that, now everybody is aware, has been exposed to safety issues, has had some safety training, is aware of safety, likely safety issues in whatever environment he finds himself. And the chances are that because of that broad-based culture, that chain will be broken somewhere along the line. So then we have, of course, the Air Force Institute of Safety in Tujesha, which does a lot of safety training, professional safety training. We're also even in the process of accrediting it so that it can also do professional training for civilians in the aviation industry also. Then, in addition to that, in the various units, what we have is also organizations. So, for example, at the lower level, which is a wing in the Air Force, which is like a battalion, we have what we call the Wing Safety Cell. It includes, a group of individuals that have safety training, and their job is to keep looking out in that wing after safety issues. They look at all the aspects of the wing, they evaluate things that are happening, and make sure that if there are any safety issues, they raise it up immediately. At the group level, we have the safety committee also. Then, at the command level, we have the safety action group. Even at the headquarters here, we have what we call the safety review board. So, which sits, every quarter to look at all the safety issues that have been raised in the Air Force, and then try to bring up policies to make sure that, all those issues are addressed. So that's how robust, in brief, what we are putting in place in terms of safety to even make sure that, incidents and accidents don't happen, in the first place. Now, if eventually they do happen, we also have contingency plans. So we have a unit in the Air Force that is dedicated and trained. Please, some men are specifically trained. They were trained outside the country to have this specialized skill and equipment to conduct combat search and rescue, we call it. So, in case of any aircraft accident or incidents in very difficult terrain and all that, they are trained to be able to go in there and within a very short time to conduct a rescue or salvage of all that. So we have that capability. Though we have, some challenges in terms of equipment, but then we have the personnel and we have the basic equipment to be able to do that.
Sir, you know where you're coming from. You'll be better prepared where you're going to. So those golden eras, you remember the Jaguars and some other aircraft that really made it golden era. What happened? What lessons did you learn? And how do you intend to guard against these mistakes or sadness, unforeseen circumstances that affected the Alpha jets in the future?
In fact, the Jaguar airplane came in, it's a popular saying in the Air Force that it was ahead of its time. It had a lot of technology, a lot of computerization, but then if you look at the lifespan, it didn't fly for so long in the Nigerian Air Force. It got grounded. The same thing with the MiG-21s. They didn't fly for too long. They also got grounded. The only airplane that has been very well sustained right from inception to date is the Alpha jet. So there are lessons to learn from there. These are normally the lifespan of an airplane is about 40 years. So if you induct an airplane into the system, you can effectively operate it for about 40 years before you start thinking that its life is expiring. But then these airplanes didn't really fly for even 10 years. Some of them they were grounded, essentially because we did not have enough training to be able to maintain them. And then we also had issues of spares. Remember, immediately the military regime came, we had a lot of sanctions. So we couldn't get spares to fly them. And then these airplanes were kept over time. They deteriorated to the extent that by the time, the sanctions were lifted, maybe a couple of decades after, the resources you needed to be able to bring these airplanes back to operational status, you had rather just buy another one. It was just not worth it. So the lesson there is still, reflected in one of the key drivers of my command philosophy, which is the focus on research and development. The ultimate aim of which is to wean yourself off dependence on, foreign vendors, because that is the only way. If we had had, enough technical capacity to maintain them, we probably would be flying them today. If we had had the capacity to also manufacture some of the spares required to, keep them serviceable, we probably will be flying them today. So those are the lessons, and the only way forward is just to try to get independence. And this is only through, technology transfer, acquisition, reverse engineering, whichever way you call it. But the aim is just for you to be able to be self-sufficient, to be able to produce what you need, so that you are not completely dependent, on foreign vendors. So those are some of the lessons, and these are some of the strategies we are adopting to be able to, alleviate going forward, or abate similar happenings going forward.
Whereby the Nigerian Air Force will be able to, from scratch to finish, put together an aircraft that is that will fly over our airspace. And this years, and I think of many that maybe in the next 20 years, in the next 10 years, this is something we're looking forward to achieving.
Certainly, this, as a matter of fact, has already happened, in a way. Yes, you'll have heard of the Air Beetle. I think that was in the 80s. The Air Beetle was an airplane. I trained with the Air Beetle, primary flying training. That's ab initio flying training, because those airplanes were completely fabricated in Nigeria. Nigerian Air Force, in collaboration with the Donia Aviation Nigeria IF, that's a civilian company in Kaduna there. But like in airplane manufacture, you don't manufacture everything completely. Usually there is an engine manufacturer, there is an avionics manufacturer, even maybe a landing gear manufacturer. So you buy those things. But then, the individual who is the airplane manufacturer, so to speak, is the guy who designs the fuselage and brings all these components to put together and call it an airplane. So in that respect, we can say that we'll be able to design and produce an airplane, because it was completely, the skin and the airframe was completely fabricated and put together in Nigeria. Only the engine and the propeller and some other components which we don't produce are, brought in and then assembled. And Nigerian Air Force procured about 60 of that airplane, but something happened along the line, because when you manufacture an airplane, you keep refining, just like any other thing. You use it, you try it, and then the next version that comes out is a refined one, and then you keep refining it until you get to something that is optimum, that you can even export. So somewhere along the line, I think that was not done in the case of the ABUJA, and we stopped manufacturing. The workshop is still there in Kaduna, but it's closed. There is nobody there. So to answer your question in short, we have actually been able to produce an airplane. Now, to add to that, you will have also heard of the Segumi and the Gurma unmanned aerial vehicles. Those ones, the Gurma was the first one, I think was 2013, 2014, that it was unveiled. This is an unmanned aerial vehicle that was designed and fabricated completely by the research efforts of the Nigerian Air Force, without any, civilian component or any outside component. And because before then, we had a lot of engineering graduates in the Nigerian Air Force, and the Air Force needed to use the skills of these individuals to see what we can come out with in terms of designing and research and development. So these individuals were sent out. A lot of them did masters and even PhD degrees in aerospace vehicle design and other aspects of aviation, avionics. So when they came back, that was the task that they had, and they were able to successfully design completely in-house and manufacture that unmanned aerial vehicle, which the first prototype, we called it Gurma, and we demonstrated it in flight, in that same Kaduna airfield. It flew around, and then we kept on refining it. And then I think the refined and optimal version came out in 2018, which we call the Segumi. The Segumi, right now, we have demonstrated everything in terms of its flying characteristics, its potential, use in operations. But there is a gap. The avionics and the integration component in terms of, integration with the cameras and GPS and other avionics components, communication and navigation systems. We didn't have sufficient capability to integrate all those things to make it really formidable in terms of conducting operations. So we had to get a foreign partner, UAE Vision in Portugal. The Ministry of Defense has already signed the contract. We have already paid our own counterpart funding for them to cover the gaps in terms of the avionics components and make this Tsegumi UAV operational. The initial contract is for us to make operational 6 models, and hopefully also that either towards the end of this year or by next year, the first operationalized models will be in our inventory. So we have a lot of capability, we have a lot of capacity. It's just gaps here and there, so we're already there, we're already manufacturing. We only need to just, close the gaps, and then we can do so much more.
Is a Super Tucano, which Nigerians had celebrated at that time. But some Nigerians are believe, because recently we are in a foreign land and we are and we saw a Super Tucano aircraft, and somebody said, we have this but we don't use it. And I just asked, why do you people don't use it? He said because some of the fighting gadgets were not supplied. That brings me to this question. How sincere are some of these suppliers you are working with? How compatible, how possible are you using these aircrafts? Because it's one thing to acquire and the other thing is the usage. We know that some of these things are security information that might not be public for some reasons, but are these aircrafts well utilized effectively as you are restocking your platform? Then secondly, is on the human angle. So I don't know, today coincidentally, 2 years ago, you lost some of your officers with a former chief of army staff in an aircraft in Kaduna. How does the Air Force react to such incidents in terms of its personnel that gets unfortunately killed in these incidents?
The complete capability, of course, that would not be smart, So usually, and especially from the countries where we're procuring from, so for example, from the United States of America, probably by virtue of their own foreign policy, they look at you, they look at your place, and look at your capability and what's your history. They look at a lot of gamut of issues before they give you a certain kind of capability. So for example, some allies, are different. What capability, let's say, the United States will give, even in terms of, let's say, the same asset, the Super Tucano, the capability that, assuming the United Kingdom is operating the Super Tucano, the capability the Americans will give to the United Kingdom is likely not to be the same with, what capability with the same asset that they will give Nigeria. So that is there, so you may not get the complete gamut of what the airplane is capable of doing, but you get what is adequate. Now, there are other issues that, that affect the operations of the Super Tucano. Is essentially a conventional airplane designed to carry out conventional operations. So it carries bombs, rockets, and then it has cannons also. Those are typically, conventional weapons. But then it's also capable of carrying out precision strikes. Now, if you look at the kinds of operations that we do, like I said, usually it's embedded. The enemy is or the adversary is very mobile, doesn't stay in one place. You have to track and monitor and do a lot of ISR, do a lot of targeting and all that. Now, 2 limitations I will just mention, for example, by the time you get information, for example, maybe the adversary is operating here. By the time you scramble a Super Tucano to go there, compared to what you scramble an Alpha Jet, the Alpha Jet will take probably 1/3 of the time that the Super Tucano will take to go there. So there is that limitation. Number 2, there is also limitation of noise. The Super Tucano is a turboprop airplane. turboprop airplanes are usually very noisy. So their adversary, with time, is very smart. He knows once he hears the sound of the airplane from afar, he disappears, he melts away. So you don't see him. So all those kinds of limitations. Then now, you cannot use also the conventional weapons that are traditionally with the airplane. Like, for example, he carries a 100 kg bomb. That's an area weapon. You cannot go and drop that because of civilian casualties. So now you are left with using precision weapons. These precision weapons are dangerously expensive. They are very, very expensive, and you have to you have to use them in a very reserved way. You don't want to. These are missiles that can cost as much as $200,000 for one. So the target must be worth it, before you expend those kind of weapons. So these are just some limitations. It's not that the airplane is not effective. It's not that we are using it, and we are using it very effectively in the roles that it is suited for. But in the kind of operations we do currently, it has some limitations. But it's a very good airplane. It's very successful. It's doing roles that we deploy it to do based on the perceived limitations and advantages that it has relatively. So and it's like that with every other asset. Some assets are optimized for some kinds of operations, while others are optimized for other kinds of operations. So like they say, all design is a compromise. So it's not a completely bad story. It's still a very good asset. It's a very formidable asset, but just like every other asset, it also has its own limitations, particularly in application to the kind of operations that we are conducting currently. So the federal government has an insurance policy. Well, there is a whole lot of packages, that are accruable to personnel or their families of deceased personnel. Benefits that personnel who die, in active service, and of course that's a typical example of dying in active service. So for example, the family is taking care of the children, school fees and education generally is taken care of up till when they finish university. So there are a lot of benefits that accrue to families of deceased personnel. But the one that you probably want to hear about is the insurance policy. Now, there is an insurance policy that is provided for by the federal government, for personnel that die in active service, and that is handled at the Ministry of Defense level. So for the Air Force, for air crew alone, because of the inherent danger in the nature of air crew duties, the Air Force decided to also come up with another life insurance policy for air crew specifically, and it covers death in active service and all that. So also there is that. Then recently, what we have done also, because we realized even putting the two insurance policies together does not adequately cater for some of the eventualities, and then of course some of the benefits may also not be robust enough to adequately cater for the family. So as one of the interventions in terms of improving the welfare of personnel, motivating personnel, by improving their welfare, we also recently came up with another insurance policy just to add to it, to motivate personnel, knowing full well that they have this also very robust, very lucrative, so to speak, insurance policy in case they have an accident or they die in the performance of their duties, or they have even illnesses that are not covered by the National Health Insurance Scheme and all that. This other insurance policy that we just started covers all that, and then the benefits are really very encouraging. So just by way of attempting to motivate personnel so that they can give their best, so that they can carry out their duties more effectively, more efficiently, bearing that in mind that they are covered even when they are injured or when they are no longer alive, their families are adequately taken care of. So there is a very robust system. We just keep adding and building, because it can't be enough for somebody who loses his life or loses a limb, that you can't compensate himself or the family enough. So we just keep improving, keep adding to whatever we can within available resources to make sure that at least personnel are aware that they are not going to suffer, they are not going to be abandoned, neither are their families going to be in case of any incapacitation or death.
He had to call our president to say, I'm ready for talks. And President Parley didn't. That was by way of paying tribute to the ABUJA. So, are you saying that this decommissioning is imminent? That is one. Then, the questions, people ask me a particular question all the time. Say, you are a good friend of the Air Force. It seems the Air Force sometimes leave its job undone. And when I ask which job, they will say these bandit leaders, the very well-known ones. We've not succeeded in killing them. The Gogo Kids, the Kachalas, the Yellow Tuchis of this world. They know them very well. Even musicians sing their praises. We've not been able to take out these guys. And to me, it encourages others to come, to join the fray and believe that they can be just as notorious as these guys. And the last question has to do with air accidents and collateral damage, in which case air accidents involving just the crew, in which we lose aircraft, and collateral damage, in which case we drop weapons erroneously on civilians, and it becomes a big embarrassment. Going back to the reports that we received, because every time there's an accident, we know there will be an inquest. Going back to those reports, what steps are you taking or have you taken to minimize these occurrences to the barest minimum? And I want to believe that in the Northeast now, the threats that we used to have diminished significantly. Does this translate to more sorties on the parts of men in the Northwest and the North Central, where we have threats from banditry?
Himself expires with time. So airplanes, like I said, the average lifespan is about 40 years. After that, you may be able to do what we call a life extension program, but it's very expensive, and even after that, it's not going to last for too long. You still have to. And then usually the manufacturers also, it's just like a car model. After 40 years, nobody manufactures the spare parts again. So it now becomes very difficult for you. You look for the spares. They are very expensive. They are very scarce. Sometimes the airplane is grounded for months and sometimes even years, just looking for a spare so that you can service it. So when all those start, then of course the incidence of also issues in terms of maintenance, snags, they start occurring much more frequently on the airplane. So when all these things start happening and the airplane is getting to 40 years, you now know that it's no longer efficient, it's no longer cost effective, it's no longer even for you to continue to operate that airplane. So the Alpha Jet has got to that level. And I'll give you some examples. The Alpha Jet is designed to use what we call the 68 millimeter SNEB rockets. Those rockets, they stopped producing them probably more than 10 years ago. So you see, it's a limitation. Now it means the airplane cannot use rockets. We have to do some R&D in-house to modify the rocket ports to be able to use, some other rocket port just for it to be useful. Similarly, a lot of issues of maintenance, spares are not available. So it's quite challenging. Some of them are due for overhaul. If you have been to Kayenji, you see we have quite a number of them in the hangar. They are due for overhaul. we can't get spares to be able to overhaul all those airplanes. So we have resources to overhaul them, but the OEM does not even have spares. They have looked everywhere. To have enough spares to carry out a full overhaul of those airplanes is not possible. So because of that, it's definitive. It has to go. It's just a matter of time, but it will still be around for a couple of years because it's going to still serve as a transition. Because a new platform is coming, you have to do a lot of training, you have to do a lot of get a lot of experience in terms of maintenance and sustenance of that platform before you are very proficient in its use and maintenance before you can retire the Alpha Jet. So it will still be around for a couple of years, but eventually it has to go. I think it has served very well. It has served its time very well, and Nigerian Air Force history can never be written without a lot of chapters on Alpha Jet. But eventually, I think we have to retire it. So that is that on the Alpha Jet. Now, regarding the leadership of these terrorist groups like the Bello Turjis and the Dogo Gides and the rest of them, one of our strategies in the Northwest in these anti-banditry operations is specifically leadership decapitation, which means that we are specifically targeting these, leaders, these, so to speak, ringleaders of these banditry syndicates, some of which I have mentioned. And if you have followed through some of the operations that we have been carrying out, you see that they are targeted specifically where we have intelligence that these guys are. So we have done a lot of, we have carried out a lot of operations, in line with this leadership decapitation strategy. And we have been lucky in a lot of instances to eliminate a lot of their leaders down the line. But these, big ones that have, the names are very popular somehow, we have not been, I don't know if to call it luck or we have not been able to eliminate those ones. But it's just a matter of time. Say again?
So they are using a Siri for you.
No, eventually we'll get them. Eventually, they have just been lucky. Sometimes from the human intelligence on ground, you see, by the time we just carry out the strike, they might be there, but somehow they manage to escape, or they just leave the place before the strike happens somehow. So they have been lucky, in a couple of occasions to escape, but it's just a matter of time. There is no hiding place. We are going to fish them out. We are going to get them out. But down the line, there are a lot of the probably, let me call them middle cadre leadership that we have taken out, and a couple of the high-level ones also. But these very popular ones have been lucky thus far, but I'm sure their luck will so run out. Then, okay, I don't remember the question there.
Yes, that's what and then air accidents is the part of your crew, which civilians are not involved. The reports that you usually generate after every accident, what strategies are you putting in place?
Okay. Well, again, if you go back to accident causation theory, you find that, empirically, for those of us that are men and women of faith, you may not believe that, but empirically, the evidence is that there is no accident that is an act of God. There is always, some agency that brings about the accident. So which means that every accident potentially is preventable.
Yes.
So now what we need to do is to put the things in place, either by training, by interventions or systems, to make sure that we make sure that it doesn't happen. And that is the strategy we're pursuing. So when you look at the totality of all the accidents, and we have made a compilation, of all the accidents that have happened in the Air Force from 1980 at least till last year. with all the lessons learned, all the important things that we can pick out of the accidents that we can learn from to make sure that it doesn't happen again. We have made a compilation of it. It's in a compendium for anybody to, for even people in the field to read about it, and so that we prevent future occurrence. So when we studied all that, we came up with strategies to, and part of which is this institutionalization of a safety culture at every level of the Air Force. But specifically, we also introduced a lot of training, so procedures. So, for example, we adopted the International Civil Aviation Organization Safety Management System Manual. We adopted it to our own operation because it's completely civilian in nature, but it's a very good document about safety management systems. Now, from that document, we came up with, for every flight, for example, we have what we call operational risk management. That has proven to be a very useful tool, in preventing accidents in other climes. So we have adopted that in Nigerian Air Force. We also do a lot of other trainings, like crew resource management, human factors, so many other aspects of training that will go a long way to prevent accidents happening. In addition to training we do in fact, we just established an accident investigation lab in our Institute of Safety at ABUJA, just to make it also more effective in terms of training our personnel. So we're doing a lot of things to make sure that people are able to see and prevent, the accidents, especially learning from all the incidents that have happened from the 80s to date. It's a very good compendium because it gives us a lot of data, a lot of information. Of course, what has happened, what caused the accident, and what we need to do to make sure that that doesn't happen again. So from all that, we came up with all these strategies, to make sure that going forward, at least not that type of accident again that will happen in the system.
Not that those departments are not for that important. But one thing that is now has also recent times that we are championing
female pilots. In fact, a significant number of female pilots. Some are even instructor pilots in our flying training school in Kaduna. So, by all means, that era when females coming into the service were, let me not call it relegated, but eventually, maybe by design, went to the services like medicals, like band, like catering. It's completely different now. Any young lady coming into the Air Force has a choice. She can be a pilot, she can be a fighter pilot. In fact, we have two of them that are fighter pilots. Now they are instructors in Kaduna, but they flew the Alpha Jet. I think OK, and then there is Sani. So both of them are instructor pilots now, and a lot more are coming. And this was also boosted. In the past, the Nigerian Defense Academy did not admit females, not until recently. So because of that, the only mode of entry for females into the services was through the directional service. Now, the principle of directional service recruitment is that you come with your degree already. So we are employed based on your knowledge and skill to come and fill a gap in the system. So once you come, if you are a doctor, for example, or you are, depending on your specialty, or you are an educator, you have to go into that because you are enlisted into the service to perform that particular role. It's only when people coming from NDA that on entry can choose any career in the Air Force. So now that females are coming from NDA, we are beginning to see them entering the combat, so to speak, arms of the Air Force, like, fighter flying, maybe air traffic control and the likes of them. So, hopefully. Hopefully. I'm very sure, because they are doing very well, and I'm very sure very soon one of them will be.
somehow was kicked. It is about how busy our airspace has been recently. The Nigerian Army has been informed just talking about planes. Also, with the advent of unmanned drones, GSS is also involved. Recently, the NIS also purchased some unmanned devices, and we are all wondering how can we manage this airspace. I know that significantly the Nigerian Air Force manages some of the assets for some of these forces in particular. Can you speak to us about it and then talk to us about how safe it is as these gadgets fly above the heads of civilians?
Okay. There are a lot of civilian organizations also that have drones and are flying them. It's something that calls for a lot of concern, but it's something that is also completely manageable if all the right things are put in place. The drones have come of age. They have so many uses. They are very versatile. So the only thing is to be able to manage them, in the airspace in which they operate. Now, the Office of the National Security Advisor, at that level, there is a committee that is tasked with the job of scrutinizing whoever wants to, that is now on the civilian side, whoever wants to bring in drones, whatever they want to use them for, they scrutinize them and make sure they have first of all, to determine what kind of drone, what they are going to use it for, and if they have the capacity to operate and maintain them and all that before they give a license. And it's very restrictive, so you have to really prove that you are capable of managing, you have the knowledge and everything, and you understand how the airspace operates before you are given that license. Now, but for the armed services, you see, each service has its constitutional mandate to fulfill, and for each service, it buys or procures assets that will enable it fulfill its constitutional mandate the way it deems fit. So if the army, in fulfilling their constitutional mandates, feel that they need a drone or a helicopter to be able to carry out some function, by all means, the army can buy their assets and use. So is the Navy. The Navy has operated helicopters for probably more than 1 decade, and we have not had any problem with that. The most important thing is to be able to manage all these things, because we are all operating in the same airspace. There are some assets, air assets, for example, that only the Air Force can operate, but there are some that the other services can also operate in fulfilling their own requirements, maybe, So there is no conflict, really. The only, challenge there is to be able to manage all this, because it's becoming, broader and broader with larger numbers, and then potentially hazardous, for the airspace, even for civil airplane traffic. If it's not properly regulated and not properly managed, then it becomes hazardous. But I think we can properly manage and regulate it, so it shouldn't be a problem.